Hello ecofictologists, how are you today? A couple of weeks ago I posted a video talking all about the opias, comparing dystopias and utopias, because those are the only opias there are, right? Wrong! Little did I know that my research was woefully incomplete. I'm a little worried about my PhD, if this is how thorough my research is. I had a really lovely response from viewers about that video, and a couple of you kindly reached out and let me know that there were some opias that I had missed. Not only that, but they are opias that are commonly used by, and one of them is coined by, prominent ecofiction authors. Ouch! So I of course had to rectify the situation immediately and give you another video about opias. Specifically, the opias that I missed last time. As much as I should have caught these additional opias in my research for my first video, I'm actually really happy for what this means for my channel. It means it's a two-way street, then I am learning from you as much as you are, hopefully, learning from me. This channel was always supposed to be a documentation of my exploration of this genre, and hopefully a way of connecting with other people who are just as excited about it and its possibilities as I am. And that is exactly what's happening, which is just really quite fantastic. So I want to encourage all of you again, if you have any questions or comments, please send them to me. If you have any wonderful little tidbits of information that you think I might have missed, definitely send those to me. I want to read them all. Some of you already pretty regularly send me articles and I love it. It makes me so incredibly happy, so please continue doing that. Okay, enough about me. We are here to talk about the other opias, the opias that I missed in my first video. So hang on to that fence that we were straddling when there were only two sides. It's now a four-way fence and you have so many options. First up, let's talk about the great Margaret Atwood and what she likes to call Ustopias. At least I think that's how you say it. It's a combination of the U from Utopia and the S from Dystopia. So if I put those together, it comes out as Ustopia. I hope that's correct. Before I go into what Ustopia actually is, I want to thank Dan Bloom for making me aware of its existence. If you remember back to one of my first videos on the ecofiction subgenres and their definitions, you will recognize the name Dan Bloom. He's the man who coined the term cli-fi, so to know that he has been watching my channel and started a conversation with me on Twitter was quite exciting, even if it was to tell me that I'd missed something. C'est la vie. Margaret Atwood is of course a big name in fiction in general, but also in ecofiction specifically. She says that what she writes is not science fiction because she doesn't put anything in her books that have no precedent, meaning that the events have either happened at some point in our history, or the tools have been developed in order to make it happen, or the ideas have been around for a while. If it's also plausible, then she doesn't class it as science fiction, which in her mind centers around things that could never happen. She prefers the term speculative fiction. There has been lots of controversy around this definition, but that is a whole other story and not why we are here today. Her Mad Adam trilogy shows up on many an ecofiction list and is an example of what she would call a ustopia. In her opinion, utopias and dystopias both include latent versions of each other, which means that they each have like a piece of the other within them, depending on whose perspective you look from. And a ustopia is a place or a state of mind where both a utopia and a dystopia can coexist. A utopia is always someone's idea of a perfect idyllic world, but is that a utopia from everyone's perspective? What about the people who don't measure up to those standards of perfection? Surely it's more of a dystopia for them. There is always a dystopian element in even our most utopian narratives because we don't all fit into easy categories, and a true utopia would really rely on the designer having absolutely no biases and somehow creating a system that is truly equal for all. At the same time though, we are too hopeful a species not to look for something better in even the most utopian narratives, so there's always an element of utopian thinking. For example, in a dystopian world, a utopian aspect might be remembering a better time in the past, or looking ahead with hope to a better time again, when this dystopian period is just a lesson to be learned from. In Atwood's words, I suppose that's what happens to utopian societies when they die. They don't go to heaven, they become thesis topics. Mad Adam is such a utopia. In brief, the trilogy takes place sometime in the future when a catastrophic combination of genetic engineering and climate change have all but wiped out humanity, and all that's left are these small pockets of society. The utopian aspect of the first book, Oryx and Crake, comes in the form of a designer race called the Crakers, who were actually intended to replace humans and were designed to never suffer from the failings of humanity. They have a different culture and a couple of cool enhancements and abilities in order to do this. In the second book of the trilogy, The Year of the Flood, the utopian aspect is represented by an environmental religious cult called the God's Gardeners, who grow vegetables on slum rooftops, and they hold nature sacred, and they choose to live very low-tech lives. Atwood says that this isn't really a dystopia because you would need more people for that, more than these remnants of humanity that are all that's left in Mad Adam. And it isn't apocalyptic because in an apocalypse everything is destroyed, whereas in Mad Adam only the human race is effectively destroyed, which is just one element of life on Earth. But do the remaining humans actually represent the dystopic threat to the utopian designer species? In her words, of course we should try and make things better, but maybe we shouldn't try and make them perfect, especially not ourselves. The next opia that I've been made aware of is an optopia, which is an achievable, imagined future that is realistically imperfect, but the best we can do given the circumstances. It's the optimal place considering where we're starting from right now. I want to give a shout out to Maria Pertna, I'm so sorry for mispronouncing your name, who reached out to me on Twitter and sent me an article by Kim Stanley Robinson where he was making a case for utopian thinking and utopian fiction, and who told me that he has been known to use the phrase optopia. So thank you very much, Maria. Kim Stanley Robinson, as I have said before in several of my videos, is one of the few big, well-known ecofiction authors who is credited for writing hopeful storylines, very much on the utopian side of the scale. Maybe not all the way over here, because he does acknowledge that we most likely will not make the necessary changes to completely avoid the effects of climate change, so the world is not in complete harmony. But his imagined futures generally depict a way of life where not everybody is living in horrible conditions and only the rich have a safe and healthy lifestyle. I've previously mentioned his name when talking about utopian fiction, but now thinking about it, there is probably a better term for what he writes, and that is optopian, which is a term coined by Joanna Russ, another sci-fi writer, in the 60s, and a term that Kim Stanley Robinson frequently uses. In an interview that he gave, Robinson says that he defines a utopia as food, water, healthcare, and education for everyone in the world, or a work towards that future, because as soon as you're on a positive trajectory in that direction, you are on a utopian trajectory. And he thinks a utopia isn't really a place or a set of circumstances that you arrive at, because it's a constant dynamic process and should remain so, because as soon as you settle, you invite a dystopian aspect because of the permanence and the rigidity of the situation. So he sees utopia as more of a process rather than a destination, a definition he attributes to H.G. Wells's work, and something that he thinks has become more common in utopian fiction since Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed. His books are usually set far, far into the future. I think Aurora is set in like the 2800s. And he always has a scientific or logical reason for why that story needs to be set in that time. And then he gives us an optopian snapshot of this utopian process. If utopia is a journey, then perhaps optopias are these snapshots that he gives us along the way, the best case scenario at that time. I'm so happy to have been made aware of these other opias because now I have something to offer readers who say, I don't like reading utopias because I find them unrealistic, or I don't like reading dystopias because they're so depressing. Now they can read realistic optopian narratives, and they can read utopian dystopias with a dash of hope. There really is something for everyone. So where do these two fall on this overly simple scale that we had when we thought we only had two options? Well, utopias, I would say, would probably fall just to the dystopian side of middle. And optopias, I would put quite close to utopias over here, but not quite all the way there. A realistic distance. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below, and you might as well, hit the like button and the subscribe button while you're there, I'm just saying. So that's all from me for now, but I will see you next week, ecofictologists.